So after Oregon gets blasted in the Rose Bowl, and we all once again in the postseason have our hearts ripped out of our chests, Davy Jones style, I see that Oregon's playing a top 20 opponent in Illinois, no, top 25 opponent in Illinois, who's ranked ahead of them in the net rankings. It's a big game. It's a huge game. Another opportunity for Oregon to stack up a quad one win. And instead, the Ducks allowed the most points in the history of Dana Altman's tenure as Oregon's head coach. The last time they allowed 100 points, I believe, was a season ago, early in the non-conference slate against Alabama. Illinois went into Matthew Knight Arena a day after Oregon fans had been metaphorically kicked below the belt and put up 109 points. So the Illini had no interest in Oregon's need for a bounce back more win. And by the way, Maryland is also a top 20 team in the net. They're not ranked, but that's Oregon's next opponent. I pray they win that game and Oregon doesn't end this week 0-3. But to say this was a mix of inexplicably bad defense and also the most ridiculous shooting I have ever seen would be an understatement. Let's start with what Oregon needs to do better. This game was going back to old habits. Get off to a slow start and try to figure it out in the second half. When Oregon turns on the intensity, they got down 21 points, 22 points at one point in the game. In the second half, they only trailed by 7 at the break. And I was actually feeling pretty good. I'm going, they're not going to keep hitting these shots. I mean, they were making the dumbest, the deepest threes I have ever seen. Illinois ended the game 16 of 29 from beyond the arc. That's not the crazy part. They started 0 for 7. So they ended 16 for 22 from 3. So I'm not panicking. I'm just disappointed in this effort because once Oregon got down 22 in the second half, they go down 7 at the break, and then they come out and boom, they get blitzed and more threes are falling. And it's like, I know the coaching staff gave you adjustments, guys, but where was it? And then eventually it clicked, and they started playing with a level of tenacity and focus and drive that hadn't been there. And they go on a 12-1 spurt. But then Illinois was just Peyton Pritcharding us. That's what happened. Everybody was launching Peyton Pritchard-esque threes. They hit 16 threes. 2 guys made 4 triples. Boswell, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce that guy's name. But they went a combined 8 of 12 from beyond the arc. Oregon, meanwhile, was 5 of 15. And Oregon ended the game with 77 points, which normally for Dana's squads, and this team in particular, is good enough to win. Because defensively, that's where they've always hung their hat. That's always been Dana's calling card. And that's been a formula to succeed. It usually is. Score enough and know that you're going to be strong defensively. I didn't feel like Oregon's interior defense was great. I didn't feel like it was terrible. But it wasn't great. But the perimeter defense continues to be a problem. They don't communicate well. Dana was screaming at guys all night long because they couldn't make adjustments on the same stuff that Illinois was doing. But here are the points allowed in Oregon's previous 13 games this year. They're 12-2 on the year. They're going to drop. They'll still be in the top 25 if they're able to beat Maryland. But again, they're still okay. They had a great non-conference. You still have to go through conference play and win a fair number of games to get yourself a solid seed in the NCAA tournament, to get yourself an at-large. I'm not worried that they're just going to utterly collapse here. I hope this serves as a sort of motivational piece in the same way the Michigan game did for Ohio State football, and it lights a fire under them. They go, yeah, we can't do that again. That's not who we are. We're not going to allow this to take place again. So Oregon has allowed so far this year, again, varying levels of competition, but 76, 48, 70, 61, 75, 70, 68, 81, 60, 73, 61, 61, 49. There is just one other game this year, and that was against Alabama, who's a top 10 team, in which scoring 77 points wouldn't have been enough. So you combine a team that continues to struggle defending the three with a team that was having a historic run shooting the ball. I mean, it was absurd. I thought you were watching a basketball game with the difficulty on varsity to shoot. They were getting too many open looks, but even with open looks, they shouldn't have been able to make as many as they were, and some of them were just dumb. Some of them were not the UCLA game-winning, buzzer-beating, banked-in three, but apparently everyone can shoot threes at Matthew Knight Arena. And I don't understand why, and I know the fans that were there, it was a good crowd, and when Oregon made a run, they were really into it, which is great. And if you were there, keep going, because Oregon needs to win these games. They need to be able to perform better at home. Their only two losses have been at home, and I know it's disappointing. I was certainly disappointed because I was just looking to see Oregon win something. Now, if they lose again against Maryland on Sunday, then you'll look around and go, well, what can this team really do? How well can they play? The Big Ten's tough. It's tough. Illinois is really good. Really, they were in the Elite Eight last year. They lost a bunch of guys, but they have got some serious athletes. Their length was bothering Oregon's length. Oregon has good size. Really good size. They've got four bigs they can comfortably play. They've rotated them out incredibly well this year. But Biddle was bothered by the length down low. Evans continues to struggle to find his offensive game consistently. He showed it in spurts. You know, he actually had a nice game. KJ Evans hit 2 threes, which, oh my gosh, that was a relief to see him hitting threes. But he ends the game with 11 points off the bench. Supreme Cook had 20 points off the bench. He was the only big that had the aggression and energy to match up with what Illinois was bringing down there. But Biddle was okay. Evans struggled. Brandon Angel, worst game he's played as a Duck. 16 minutes. He was 2 of 8 from the field. This is one of the most efficient players in college basketball, and he just looked soft, quite frankly. He looked like Illinois was pushing him around, and that's an adjustment he's got to be able to make. He's incredibly skilled, really good, but that was a bad day. Shellstad continues to struggle shooting the ball consistently. That needs to change. Really, really needs to change. But Oregon couldn't find success inside because Illinois is long and athletic, and they just weren't able to finish so many bunnies around the rim. I mean, 5 feet and in, it's like they took the size of the basket and made it so that only a perfect shot could have fallen down, and then they weren't hitting a ton of threes. But again, 77 points. I didn't feel like offense was the problem. Once they started making a run, they were getting inside, and they hit a couple of threes, and then they couldn't get stops because Illinois was just red hot. So you run into a hot team, that's tough. I do not recall a more brutal 2-day stretch of being an Oregon fan. If you can think of one, by all means, let me know. But national title hopes out on national TV in embarrassing fashion. National TV, obvious. But then the next day, the most points allowed ever in the Dana Altman era. I trust Dana to get that team to respond. But boy, suddenly I'm going to watch that Maryland game this weekend, and it's going to be, hey, you need this. You need this at home to settle down. You do not want to lose for a third time on your home floor, or things could spiral. So, tough times. Hopefully, the night is darkest just before the dawn. But a tough week to be an Oregon fan. No other way to put it. No other way to put it. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time on Monday. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And go Ducks.